Welcome in. This is 300 Yards to Unknown. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there, Skylar Hoke, who is going to help us continue our ongoing Ryder Cup series. Kyle Poulter, in a previous episode, picked the United States team. And Sky, I couldn't think of anyone better to bring on to just hand over the keys to the European squad to you, my friend. Welcome.
Well, I appreciate it, Rick. It's an honor to be on, your podcast here. Kyle left some balls out there to play with. I'm excited. No Brooks, no Bryson. Okay, I'm ready for that line to start shifting my way. Underdog. Go. We'll see. But no, I'm excited. The Ryder Cup years are always the best, so I'm glad they can get to it.
Yeah, only a couple of weeks away at this point. It's going to get here before we know it. It's Whistling Straits. It's on American soil. But the European squad, they have just, whatever the formula is, and I don't know what it is, they have seemed to figure it out because they just seem to win more of these than they should.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at exactly what played out, the last time we saw the Ryder Cup, that since I've been into the golf space, into the golf world, we saw the big bad Americans seemingly could not be beat, for the months leading in. And then by the time the, day two rolled around, it was like, there wasn't a chance. It was unbelievable what they displayed. The course, I think that's ultimately going to be a big factor this year. Playing in France like they did at Le Golf National, that was set up as perfectly as it could be to take away the Americans' biggest weapons. Whistling Straits, I'd imagine, is not going to be that same style. So I think there does have to be a little bit, and maybe that is the dynamic, is the European team does a little bit better from a course fit perspective. We saw that really well. Obviously, it's not the same, but the President's Cup played out in kind of that manner. With some of those guys kind of looking at the analytics side of things. Maybe that's the edge, but I think they have to play what's in front of them.
I was actually pretty impressed with Ernie Els' ability to be analytical, to be strategic. He knew they were big dogs. It took a while, but the Americans finally prevailed. I think you're onto something that I've thought about before, which is, we spend a lot of oxygen right now, and we're going to do it today, on who's going to make the team and who's not going to make the team, when I actually think the bigger story is the course and how it gets set up, because that should really start to make team decisions, because the course comes first. The picking the team to fit the course should come second.
Yep. And that's exactly it. And I guess at the end of the day, the European Tour side, we'll talk about, 75% of that team is based off of, rankings, European points, world points, where there's only 3 captains picked. So again, less of what you're really able to manipulate. And yeah, I think working on the pairings, how they complement each other, and deciding the best way to attack it is just a more of a preparation. I feel like that's just what it seems like every single time, compared to just show up and be the best players in the world, which gets it done at a PGA Tour event when you're individuals. And I thought what you and Kyle talked about too, where I guess, Harrington is a competitor of these guys and they teed up with them, but it is, I think, viewed a little bit differently than the mentor. On the European Tour side, when they look up to him, they respect that, and it's not competing against Jim Furyk, Steve Stricker, those type of things. I thought that was a valid point.
Yeah, check your ego at the door and fall in line for a couple of days and see what happens. See if we can hoist the trophy. So you mentioned this. This is really important because the European Tour does this a bit differently, and the way that they do it is they start with European points, and they take the first 4 golfers in European points, which as of this moment would be Jon Rahm, Tommy Fleetwood, Tyrrell Hatton, Rory McIlroy. Then they flip over to the world points and they take the next 5 that aren't already qualified. So that would include at this moment Hovland, Casey, Fitzpatrick, Westwood, Shane Lowry. And then that leaves the captain, in this case, Patty Harrington, with 3 remaining picks. So you're not going to be constrained by those qualifications. But do you like this? It gives the captain a little less say in who's going to be on his team, but in theory, it would give you guys who are playing better. We've just seen this backfire at times where somebody wins something big. They're the last qualified spot. They haven't been playing well. Like, do you like the way that they do this better than the American side?
I think I do. It's just more, I guess at the end of the day, we love getting involved with small sample sizes when it comes to golf and betting on it and seeing somebody go low on Sunday. And then it's like, okay, that's the guy we want on the Ryder Cup. And, these really look at a 2-year qualification period. I mean, the last time Shane Lowry won the Open Championship, that feels like forever ago when thinking about how much some of these points matter, in the lead up. I mean, there's golfers who are out of form that I struggled with deciding in or out on, but looking at their past histories that they've done at Ryder Cups, seeing their game styles, you see somebody like Victor Perez, if you scroll down a little bit on that world ranking, who's just one slot out. Say he wins at Wentworth in a couple weeks, he's going to have an automatic bid, and he realistically hasn't done anything in quite some time. I mean, last week on the European Tour was a weaker field where he played better, but we haven't seen much out of him since before the Masters. So when, we have a long time to accumulate points, I think you do get the better players, and maybe that arguably they just show up when it matters compared to somebody who's riding, the hot sticks leading in.
Okay, the hot sticks leading in. Let's get this underway. Let's start with just a couple of layups here. The first guys on your squad. It's a really top heavy team. Let's go, Captain Sky. Let's start making some picks here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 4 I would say right away that stood out to me. That, I mean, of course, they're automatic qualifiers, but they also are, the best players in the world right now. Jon Rahm being number 1. Sure. That is, hopefully from his standpoint, I mean, he's getting to a maturity level that, he's obviously going to be, the main guy on this team for Ryder Cups to come, that he can maybe play more of that role. It's tough because you do have so many veterans, but if you think of the European Justin Thomas, that kind of young leader, Rahm's now kind of settling in that role, hopefully. Next one, I mean, you can't argue with Rory Mcilroy having to be that side of it, more of a veteran leader. I mean, my favorite part about Rory, we got to see it at the Olympics too, but is him being hatless in these events. Hatless Rory, he jumps up in rankings. So I think,
these two are going to be staples for a long time. These two are seemingly, and it is interesting because if this team ends up having a Shane Lowry and a Lee Westwood and an Ian Poulter, I mean, that veteran level experience is great. However, I think there's something different when you have a guy like a Jon Rahm, like a Rory McIlroy, who's not only leading the clubhouse, but might play every single session and might win every single point. I mean, it's just different. It is like, let me tell you how it's going to be off the course. And let me show you how it's going to be on the course.
Yep. 100%. And those two, like you mentioned, I mean, Rahm being the best player in the world right now, like far and away, you hope this is an opportunity where he'd go out there and take 3, 4, I mean, even 5 points if he wants to sweep it. He has that same opportunity. So that's 1 and 2. I think 3 and 4 to me, in the similar sense of what we get to see with Jon Rahm, Victor Hovland now gets to make his debut, and similar to the Morikawa side of things, I just can't wait for these kids to get a chance. And of courses, Whistling Straits in Hovland's driving ability, I think it's made in heaven.
Yeah, Hovland is, I think he's special, right? I think he's really special. I'm not sure that's much of a hot take. He's been phenomenal. He's got 3 worldwide wins already, but now you're right. And I kind of mentioned this to Kyle too, because of the extra, and this was weird at the Open Championship, right? Because we had Morikawa, who I don't remember what he was ranked at the time, but like making his debut at the Open Championship as like a top 7 player in the world, just because how quickly these guys have come onto the world stage. Because we were delayed a year, now it's like, oh my God, it's like they're making their debut. This is now different. This is now something else that we're going to see them in. And to their credit, Scott, like they've answered every question up to this point. Oh, yeah. I imagine they're going to continue to answer questions, but I'm so, give me a Sunday Morikawa versus Hovland match. I need it.
Yep. And I think it's kind of nice because they're both a little bit silent assassins in the sense that we don't see so much emotion out of them. Maybe we do get that opportunity to get a big fist pump with the crowd going. I think when we get into our pods and pairings, I'm excited actually with who I have Victor lined up with, because, I want to see that a little bit more come out of them in this moment. Fourth one, I mean, I'm continuing to go down, on the chalk list, but Paul Casey has arguably had the most underrated season of anyone across the world.
Correct.
He's a top 5 player in the world with what he's done, regardless. I mean, one win in Euro, in a decent event, but you can just almost chalk him in for a top 8 finish. It feels like every single week teeing it up. So yeah, I think he's just such a staple.
His PGA Tour stats have been phenomenal, and that doesn't even include the victory that you're referring to. So, I mean, it really is someone who's underrated, who's flying under the radar. When you look at your start, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Viktor Hovland, Paul Casey, there is no question about the top of the board for the European team. These guys can compete against the any of the top whatever guys on the American side. So far we're square. I think we're gonna have some more questions when we get into depth, but you are starting with what I think is really a murderer's row of combination of young talent, young, exciting, great top players, and you throw Casey in there. Rory's got like that veteran acumen. Like this is a great core to start with.
Oh yeah. And no ways you chop around it. There's not anyone you worry from an ego standpoint. You don't have to, avoid 2 guys being in the same room that are top, 10 players in the world. So I think, the buy-in level so there, but it does, I wouldn't say get hairy, but it's from 5 to 12, you can make a counter argument to each of them. And that's where, obviously you make the selections and there's guys that are automatically qualified. There's my 5th pick would be Hatton at this point.
Okay.
And again, if you look at his has to be stretched out more, he's now he touched, I think, the top 8 player in the world was potentially the best 7th. Actually, I think he got to 5th at one point, but that recent form hasn't been as consistent as you would like it to be. His major, I guess at the end of the day, we do question in the big moment, we haven't seen him show up as much. Are there major championships where Hatton has been in the mix? Not really,
not really,
so that's, yeah. But I do love what his emotions bring. I think that ultimately does bring out hopefully the best in these situations. The last time we saw him, I guess he was top 20 at the St. Jude, but Open Championship, US Open, nothing. It's a more resume of what he's done, over the last couple of years that gets him locked in. There's no way a team is happening without Hatton, but is he somebody who I could see potentially flopping? That's my worry when I don't think you have the 5th pick worried about flopping as much on the US side.
He's an X factor. I think I described Colin Morikawa that way just because I didn't know what we were going to get out of him, but like kind of similar to Tyrrell Hatton. I think he's got all the upside in the world. You take multiple victories worldwide in the last couple of years, but then you offset that with hasn't really played particularly well at major championships, and then you say, okay, well, he hasn't really played all that great this summer. A couple of flashes, but he's got a couple of events to go to kind of get into shit. It's just he's the X factor. I would not be surprised to see him go out and earn the European side a ton of points. And to your point, I wouldn't be surprised if he flopped. And that's kind of where we're at. Like, I'd be stunned if Rahm flopped. I'd be stunned if Rory flopped. I'd be stunned if Casey flopped. I would not be stunned about Tyrrell Hatton. So to me, he's your biggest X factor to this point, and he's your 5th man in.
Yep. And the last time we saw him, so 2018, he was 1-2 on that winning Ryder Cup team. What was really cool, actually, when they did win in France, every single player on that team had at least 1 point, which is, you don't obviously see that very, very often. So, mediocre experience, I guess, going 1-2, but I think he's locked into that spot. And again, as you continue on, it gets a little bit hard from the sense of there's guys that are deserving on this team because of pedigrees. And I'm even me wanting recent form, wanting things like dialing into what has been successful. I think you're going to have to fill this back end with guys that I'm not betting on week in and week out right now, on the PGA Tour.
There's two guys. There are two guys that I don't know what to do with. We won't spoil where they fall in yet, unless you're ready to bring them on the team. But I mean, it's Sergio.
I'm not yet. No.
Yeah, it's Sergio and Justin Rose. Those are the two for me that I'm like, love the veteran savviness. Maybe we have too many veterans. Like, who knows what this team is going to look like? But I have big question marks. So we'll see as we get closer. We've got 5 guys on the team right now: Rahm, Rory, Hovland, Casey, Hatton. 6th man in looks like who?
I think it's Fitzpatrick. Okay. Just rock solid, on all aspects of his game. I think when I think about him and what his course fits are, is different than what his profile obviously is, small little skinny kid who's actually one of the better off the tee, specialists in the world, surprisingly.
Yes.
Better distance, you'd think, above average accuracy, which is a great combination to have at Whistling Straits. Again, I'm not profiling him just on a course fit. He's done enough to qualify Race to Dubai champion or I guess runner up to Westy last year with it.
Yeah, but, and he won that final event of the year that clinched it for Westwood, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, his building up is definitely enough. We've seen him around leaderboards. Again, on the PGA Tour, you're still waiting for, I guess, that Hatton-esque win that Hatton did at the API to build in these points. But this team doesn't happen without Matthew Fitzpatrick.
And I think that he's infinitely parable, right? I think he's kind of a low-key guy. I think he doesn't care who he plays with. I think the fact that he's not going to get you in any trouble off the tee is important. I think that he can get a hot putter, which is also critical here. I agree with you. There's no chance this team exists without Matt Fitzpatrick on it. And I think he's a good team member, right? Because we have to start considering that at some point too. And that's going to start breaking ties for you, I imagine, as we start getting into golfers 7 and 8. Let's see where we go from here.
Yep. And I think this is where, I guess you mentioned too that we'll definitely talk on. The next one for me is very locked in Shane Lowry.
Okay, cool.
So Lowry, again, from a profile standpoint, I think his off the tee consistency, almost in a different way than Fitzpatrick, a little bit longer. You'd imagine, I guess when I think about his year, I mean, of course, I guess 2 years, the Open Championship is such a, heavy weight in what he has done, but he's been relatively consistent all of 2021, not with exceptional finishes, but I mean, I think it's almost like 70% of his finishes since the Masters, or even just before, have been like all top 25s. We've seen a lot of just week in and week outs. He's not missing cuts. He's not blowing up, but he's not technically seeing himself in the mix when it comes on Sunday. But I mean, you'll see the pairing that we have with him a little bit later on that I think is a lot of fun.
That's what I'm interested in. Yeah. I mean, he has not lost strokes on approach in a measured event since the API. That was in March. I mean, he's been really solid there. I question the driver, but the rest of his game, I'm not
that driver recently has been, I mean, at the Olympics, it was horrible
and problematic.
And that's normally what the backing of his game had been for so long. It's week in and week out. He was one of the better or more consistent drivers. I agree. But if we're stretching out long samples, this is where you could put anybody probably 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think those top 6 that we locked in are rather strong. And I actually think the next pick for me, because this is 9, right? We're on
we're on 8. I have 8, number 8. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this actually comes from a wild card pick for me when it comes to pure rankings of who's automatically qualified. And again, when it comes to team, when it comes to emotion, when it comes to what I actually want on this team, and a lot of these guys are really good ball strikers. Short games can be intermittent from a couple of them, and I think when it matches up this pair a little bit later on, I can't wait for Ian Poulter to be back at the Ryder Cup.
This is this to me, I'm just envisioning him going full scorched earth again. I mean, it's almost comical at this point. I'm guilty of this myself, where I'm like, well, It's a Ryder Cup year. Here comes Poulter. But sure enough, here comes Poulter. Played well in Memphis a couple of weeks ago. He's made a bunch of cuts. I think he's going to play very well at Liberty National and kind of just continue this momentum into what is going to be the fall. But to me, when I originally looked at this a couple of weeks ago, I had a lot of questions around what was going to happen with Rose, Sergio, and Poulter, because to me, they were like three staples of this team that probably should or could be on it, but I wasn't thrilled with the way they've been playing. And to me, Poulter has played much better, has started to answer a lot of the questions that I had about him. I agree. I would not be picking this team at all without the presence of Ian Poulter on it. So that's where we stand, Sky. Rahm, Rory, Hovland, KC, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, Poulter. We're through 8. We've got four picks to go for Captain Sky.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, I think that knob has been turned from him. If you look back, I think it's from the Wells Fargo Championship. We haven't seen him lose strokes to the field, and a lot of it is on the short game. And I do think the match play situations, a short game, a really good putter, is either one of the most frustrating things or one of the things that can save you. I mean, we've seen how many he's buried in those situations, so that's the most reliable short. I mean, Rahm's also an incredible putter too, but I think that being able to have that reliability is just so big. So moving on, I think
it's real quick. I just want to say, I'm trying to think of what I was like. No one wants to play Ian Poulter, right? Like there is not an American who's like, I'll take him. It's just like, oh boy, like and that's a thing, and it's a real thing, especially in match play. And he's going to get everybody all lathered up. The crowd's it's going to be a thing. And I can't wait for it. All right, sorry.
I mean, he came into terrible form to the match play and played really well. Like it's just almost a given in that situation. 9 for me. I struggle with this one because this is where the form actually, I think I almost question, and maybe I'm being too harsh on him because I guess the last couple of events are bad, but he found a consistent stretch midsummer with nothing challenging, but enough out of the irons, I guess, to be better than field average. But what Tommy Fleetwood did at the last Ryder Cup was magical. Mollywood, unfortunately, I mean, there's no chance I'm picking Francesco as a wild card. So we can't continue that. But this is where I guess the team buy-in, I'm still okay with the experience, with, just that level of confidence that we saw out of Tommy. It's there. I mean, the results maybe haven't been near as well. I mean, he hasn't had a top 10 since I think it actually would have been the match play.
Yeah, he got to the Elite Eight, right?
Yeah. So it's been a while for him, but when we get into this range, again, I think the people that are outside of the qualifiers, which Tommy he's going to be on the team. He's automatically qualified in because his results, primarily actually on the European Tour over the last couple of years. But he's going to be in. But of guys of recent form, he is definitely the one for me that I have the most question marks about.
I agree. I did not know what you were going to do with him. I assumed he's going to be on the team because he's, as you mentioned, he's an automatic qualifier. A lot of what we saw it goes a long way. I don't know what I would do with him. I mean, I would put him on my team too, but I don't think I would be thrilled. I think that I'm banking on a lot of good vibes and good pairings and him figuring it out and just the raw talent. But yeah, I mean, it has not, and he'll be the first to tell you this, it hasn't been like a good year for Tommy Fleetwood, and maybe there's some magic that he can pull here, but I don't know. I have no idea what to expect out of him.
Yeah. And I think it's just peak Fleetwood of a lot of these guys. I think peak Fleetwood's the best. I mean, we've seen him excel at, I guess, what would you say the most comparable course? I mean, I think of Aaron Hills kind of in this area. Sure. I guess Aaron Hills, Tommy kind of relatively out of nowhere showed up and gave a little bit of a run there. I mean, it's not exactly what Whistling Straits will be, but I think peak Tommy, which we haven't seen in a long time, does, drive the ball exceptionally well and can show up in these moments. So I think that's when I stop asking questions, I guess he's the one that I'm still, no matter what, he's going to be on the team.
Okay. I've got 9. My count says 9. Rahm, Rory, Hovland, Casey, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, Poulter, Fleetwood. That leaves you with 3 picks. And now this is where I think it gets really interesting. I've got, I'm going to write down who I think you're going to pick here. So hold on. I'll do this.
I think I'm getting emotional as I'm going through this, and I just subbed somebody out, subbed somebody back in.
Oh, did you? Oh boy. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to think you go with, okay.
I think the next one for me, I could have almost picked over Tommy because I think I disagree a little bit with what you said earlier. I like what Sergio has done recently.
Okay.
Just from, I guess, the course suitability. I mean, if you look at his off the tee, he literally hasn't lost strokes to the field all year.
Yes.
I guess maybe the Players' Championship might have been the one where he lost strokes to the field, but he's literally like a top 2-3 driver in the world right now. And of course profiling, when I'm looking at comparing him to, just say Justin Rose, who you compared to him to earlier, that the games flip. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And what do you want here? I think I'd prefer the prolific driver compared to the short game of Rose.
I actually think the good news, and Sergio is on my list, who I thought you would pick.
Okay.
I think that the formats that we're going to get and match play, I think that's better for Sergio. Mm-hmm. I think when you start giving yourself, listen, he's a phenomenal ball striker. He's one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour, and he usually cannot overcome the putting. But when you give yourself, a 20-footer and you have to make it, or a 10-footer and you have to make it, I think it goes a long way to freeing him up, to be quite honest, and knowing I don't have to worry about the next putt because I make it and I win, it doesn't matter. I also think that when we get to alternate shot, I guess technically you only have to take half the putts or whatever it's going to end up being, right? I mean, I think it's a better situation for him. We saw him make a deep run at the match play. So I certainly, when I was going through this, like, Sergio made my team too. I just have a lot of concerns, but that's not unique to him. And I think this is one of the better formats for him.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, that off the tee, I mean, it's out of this world with how good it has been. And the interesting part too, is he came into the 2018 Ryder Cup with just pretty putrid form. He was kind of gifted a captain's pick and ended up gaining 3 points that week for them, 3-1. And though I almost feel like we don't see that on the American side often. It might be, just say, I mean, Sergio, I don't know who would you compare that pick to, if maybe Phil got a spot or something like that's maybe a little bit too extreme. I guess Sergio's Masters,
I don't know.
Played.
Right. That might be a good comp.
So, I mean, there's no way Phil's getting 4 matches if he's on the team, instead of these guys threw him out there, to get the opportunity, and he showed up.
Here's Sky's team, European team so far: Rahm, Rory, Hovland, Casey, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, Poulter, Fleetwood, Sergio Garcia, and there are 2 picks left. I've written down where I think you're going, so let's add one more to this team.
All right, the 11th pick. I do believe in grooming for the future. Yes. I do believe it's important to get these guys experience. Yes. I do think being in the same room is huge for these guys. I mean, eating up practice rounds, being around the captains, the coaches, and seeing what it is. And the most deserving newcomer to the stage, obviously outside of Hovland, is Robert McIntyre, in my opinion. Yep. And what McIntyre does best is he's an unbelievable driver of the golf ball too. There was a quote that will forever stick with me that happened at the Scottish Open. I've been following McIntyre since kind of his rise from the Challenge Tour, where he was in contention really early on in the European Tour events. And so I follow all these like Scottish writers and different things. And McIntyre played a practice round with Will Zalatoris. And Zalatoris was quoted after the round and said, he's the best driver I have ever seen, which is just, again, maybe I read into too much of what player speak is. I believe that Morikawa wasn't going to hit his irons well at the Open Championship. We tend to get a little bit too much into what they say, but it was just neat to hear that, and I think he's done enough. Has he gotten over the line enough to really say he's to the pedigree that I'd want him to be at? No. I mean, one European Tour win to his name, but the Open Championship is as big of an event that McIntyre will ever play in his life. Next year will be incredibly huge for him being in his country. And, he's delivered both times with top 10 finishes. And there's something to be said about that. He made the cut on the number this year and had that weekend put together. He's playing in the Korn Ferry Tour Finals this week. He's starting that. So he's chasing his PGA Tour card, which I think is very, very fun to see for him. So I think McIntyre is definitely deserving of a spot on the team, and he fits Whistling Straits so well with that driver.
I couldn't agree more. He's on the team, which leaves us with one pick remaining, and just to kind of go through who is available, and I'm sorting by the world points here. So Victor Perez is available. Guido is available. Bernd is available. Justin Rose is available. Thomas Dietrich, Danny Willett. I can't imagine we're going too far down this list. Caleb Hill just moved up in a big way, and then Richard Bland rounds out the top 20. So this is it. There is one pick remaining, Sky. It is yours to make. You are the captain. I'm 2 for 2 on writing down who I thought you were going to go with, and I'm hoping I've got the last guy.
So do we want to rule out people? Do we want to talk about who I'm
sure.
like
who did not make this team for you? Yeah.
So I think there's one wild card that you didn't even read off that I think actually would be really, really good here. So I'll put him. He's not my pick.
Okay.
But I actually think that one of the most talented golfers in the world, who did incredibly well at the 2016 Ryder Cup, where he actually led the European Tour team at Hazeltine in points, who just delivers on a couple big stages. Olympics, he was fourth. I guess the last time he was up there after a couple of days. I think Thomas Pieters would be an excellent fit for this course. He doesn't have enough right now. You would have to. And what's interesting, I guess, the guys that are going to do well at the FedEx Cup probably are all on a Ryder Cup team or in the mix there. But we do have Wentworth coming up on the European Tour schedule after the FedEx finishes. And for those that don't know, the BMW Championship or BMW PGA Championship is the biggest event on the European Tour calendar year. And it probably will provide an opportunity for somebody, if they win it, to really have a chance at being a selection of it.
Kind of steal one of those late in the game.
Yeah. So if he wins that, I would absolutely put him in the mix. So that would be my far out wild card.
Interesting. Okay.
The next one that I would progressively go up to would be Lee Westwood.
Okay.
I love Westy. Westy Island, is something that, we'd like to see come through for all these major championships that he has, found himself kind of on the outside looking in. But he's guaranteed. He's going to be.
Yeah, so he's really the one guy that will be on the team that you have passed on.
Yep. He would not be selected for me. There's just not enough there. I mean, we haven't seen anything realistically out of him, for me at least. And I guess maybe I made an excuse for Westy or for Fleetwood on it. I mean, and since the Players and API, those back-to-back weeks, and then I guess he won the Race to Dubai to end 2020. There hasn't been anything. There hasn't been a better finish than T18, and that was at the match play, which I guess T18 isn't even advancing out of your.
It's not out of your
technical.
pod.
You know what I mean? So He hasn't had a top 20 finish realistically since he went back to back, battling Bryson on those Sundays. So I think there's enough veteran presence still already on this team that I don't need to have Lee Westwood there. So then I really wrestled with this last one.
So this is the last guy who did not make the team?
Yeah, and he was on my team when we launched this show.
Oh no!
But I thought about this a little bit more, and I look at from gearing up for future years and understanding what this team is going to be, and building up to who I think is going to be on this team in future years. Do you know where the next Ryder Cup's at?
Oh, I did before. Oh boy, no, I don't.
Okay, I'm not going to say it yet.
Wait,
this. It's going to play in.
No, wait. Hold on. I think it's in. So if I'm pretty sure I know where it's at, and then I also think I know who your last guy is. So I think it's in Rome, isn't it?
Okay, it's in Rome.
Okay,
it's in Rome. So if you think about future years, okay. And you understand a little bit about building the team and kind of having this experience. And again, I don't expect this player to probably play more than 1-2 match. I mean, you wouldn't have expected some of the guys. I feel like looking back, I didn't really remember Bjorn Olsen the last time, we played the 2018 Ryder Cup was on the team. There are some of these guys that fill out the roster. So the last selection that I would leave off is the guy who 3-putted 18 is now not playing in the FedEx Cup playoffs and probably going to maybe affect his chance on the Ryder Cup.
Honestly,
and that's Justin Rose.
Yeah, Justin Rose.
I mean, the reason he's probably going to be on the team. I don't know if they're going to figure it out differently than I am, but if you want to pair some of these really strong ball strikers with above average elite putters, Rose does have that in his bag of tricks more than others do. I mean, he literally almost won some big time events based off of just short game recently when he was in zero type of form. He does have that capabilities, but I think when I guess the Wyndham was good, 10th place, right? I mean, he was good at the PGA Championship, but again, everything is just so short game driven that I prefer Poulter in that spot. I don't think it's even close when you compare Poulter and Rose. That if I want to think about why I want this team and how I want to set myself up as a captain, I don't think I need another one of those veteran guys in this situation personally.
I'm in lockstep with you here. Rose is a guy that I think his results have been boosted by some unsustainable short game results, and he doesn't move the needle for me as much. And I think, to your other point, I think he'll be on the team. I think he's going to be on the team. I think that's more likely than not, or at least he's the favorite to be on the team as opposed to not be on the team. But he would not make it if I was the captain. So that leaves us with the man that I think you are grooming for Rome, which has to be. Go ahead, reveal it to the world.
It has to be Guido Migliozzi, man. It has to be. The more I thought about this, kind of, and talking out with you, I think the process just. I mean, I absolutely love the kid. I have an affinity for what Guido has done, and to put himself in a situation that he's not far out from like ripping off a couple more second place finishes and maybe stealing a win, that he could actually almost automatically qualify for this team. His 2020 was downright awful.
Yes.
It was really, really bad. But what he has done, I mean, I think if you look at from a recent form standpoint, his recent form is top 8 of the guys that you'd qualify for the Ryder Cup of everybody on this team. You'd see him, I guess, again, that probably puts in the last 12 weeks. He's had finishes where he went 2 consecutive second place finishes, losing out in a playoff in one, losing to Bernd Wiesberger in the other, and Bernd, I guess both people he lost to, Richard Bland and Bernd, will probably be in some sort of discussion. I don't think they would get selected over a Justin Rose unless they do something magical.
I don't think they've done enough. Yeah.
But the most magical thing I think that was done out of these type of contenders to me was what Guido did at Torrey Pines,
right,
which was that 4th place finish. If you look at Guido's approach game, his irons pretty much since, that tournament, the British Masters, have been unbelievable. He showed up at the Travelers after he did that top 10 and got the automatic spot. And he had, I follow this kid's every shot, across the world. And he had as much of a ho-hum week as you can have. And he was T13, and for somebody you see kind of rolling it over, it's not often you kind of see that for him. He should have made the cut of the Open Championship. He bogeyed, I think, 17, missed the cut on the number. Olympics were okay, nothing special. But the real thing is grooming the back end of that team of McIntyre and Guido together. Being in Italy, like that's
right. Because I think if he can continue to play this way, if he can get the experience now, he could be a big part or a much larger part of that team in a couple of years. Here are the three that I had written down. I don't know if it's going to be able to focus or not.
It didn't, but I can guarantee you nailed it.
Come on. It's a very this camera. Yeah, it was McIntyre, Guido, and Sergio. There we go.
Yep.
All right. So this leaves us. So here's the European squad: Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Hovland, Casey, Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Lowry, Poulter, Tommy, Sergio, Bobby Mack, and Guido rounds out the 12 picks for you, Sky. Now the question becomes, all right, the hard work is done, but this is just phase one. Do you want to try to pair these guys up and figure out the best way to go about this?
Yeah, I think I'm very locked into my opening four.
Right.
So again, we mentioned our two leaders. I think sending out leaders early is very important. And I think pairing them not with each other, but like, to me, the best two players probably on the USA side are JT and Spieth. And I'm thinking the format. I'm thinking everything
format in this world. Yeah.
So that's the comparable of Rory Rahm to me. I'd rather separate them and kind of help them carry someone else that are with them, because they can carry a match by themselves. You know. So when our team's not as deep, I don't think you can play them together. So I probably think if I'm sending out my I guess first, I don't know which one I would go out first, because they both would be fun, but they're both co-countrymen with each other. I think Rory and Shane Lowry would be someone. Now, you brought up good points regarding Lowry's recent driver. I'm really into Rory for the FedEx playoffs. I think he found something a little bit the last couple of weeks. Somebody I trust a lot on the European Tour side is Ben Coley, who is kind of able to read the tea leaves, I think, a little bit better than a lot of us out there. And Ben Coley really thinks Rory McIlroy has a large next couple of weeks ahead of him leading into the Ryder Cup. So I think Rory can do it. And that driver, I guess, has been another really consistent part of the game. So him and Lowry together. And then I'm really, really fun pair next. I'm excited for this one, would be Jon Rahm. And I would partner him up with Sergio Garcia.
That would be both of these, not only from a fit kind of vibing together, but would be very fun to see. I love this. The Rahm Sergio, just like, let's just light the world on fire. I love this. This is strong.
And I think they would complement, specifically Rahm and Sergio would complement, I think, a lot, just because of Sergio's lack of a putter. Having paired with Rahm, I think, would be strong. So that'd be my for
Rahm
sure.
Rahm can summon that putter in the biggest moments. Yep. This is good. So Rory and Lowry, Rowry, if that's their team name, Rahm and Sergio. We'll have to figure out one for that. Okay, so that's our first four. What else you got?
So the next one, I love this duo too, and why I think he'd be a perfect pair. Again, we talked about silent assassins of Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland. Let's bring the fire out of Hovland with Ian Poulter. Let's get those two together. Let's get the short game paired up with that massive ball striking advantage. I think Poulter could do so well with Victor there. So that'd be
complementary skill sets. And man, these two guys could not be more different, which I kind of like in this situation, right? Yep. Could you imagine if Poulter can pull this out of Hovland, Hovland just starts fist pumping on everybody and just like dunking on everybody? Oh my God.
It'd be beautiful. So those six right there are extreme locks for me. I think the remaining six could be a little bit interchangeable from some sense. I think the next one, again, if I'm imagining grooming, I'm imagining putting somebody who, I love Guido, I love what he can do, but I'd imagine him not playing all that much. I think McIntyre can really make an impact on this team. So I'd be putting Paul Casey and McIntyre together in that pod right there, and just having veteran presences with surrounding both of those guys. I think would be really strong on that end.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to be able to get a guy who not only you're trying to get for the future, but also I always get nervous when they run like two first timers out there together and both guys are deer in the headlights. And this is an opportunity to kind of match up even Hovland as well with a Poulter. I mean, it's just Casey and Poulter, nothing is going to happen out there that is new to them. And when they can kind of lead the way and be the shepherd for those two first timers, I think it's something special.
Yep. And I don't have any questions about any of those 8. I think those, to me, I'm really, really hoping they do pick McIntyre. I think he has a live shot to be on this team. And I think, again, he fits the course as well as anybody who's on that fringe for a pick. So then that leaves the final 4, which you can kind of put these a little bit together. I think if you're looking at a Molly Wood type, if you think just kind of a Tita Green, somebody who, maybe the difference I think here is Fleetwood is always so positive. I don't really see him down on himself all that much on the golf course. I'd pair him with Hatton, and kind of have those two maybe level each other out, put
and they're buddies too. And
yeah, they're funny on their videos together, they I think would just do emotionally, hopefully, because Molinari is, I think, pretty flatline, but they were able to bring it out. Tom was able to bring it out a little bit of him more.
Right.
And then that leaves me the remaining 2 that I don't know. I guess Guido's had a trending short game that has been better than he ever had, leading up to kind of what he did. So I think, you put him with Fitzy. They're just overall kind of, you can't say one skill set's better than like elite, but nothing is horrible in the sense that I think they could just be all around players with each other. So that would kind of be, and you groom Guido with, people that have been there and just have some fun with that group.
Guido and Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood and Terrell Hatton, Robert McIntyre and Paul Casey, Victor Hovland and Ian Poulter, which is by far my favorite, John Rahm and Sergio Garcia, and then Rory McIlroy with Shane Lowry. Those are the pairings, and you're a flexible captain, Sky. You'll see as the week goes on, what needs to be updated. But let's be real. You look up the odds. Your team here are the dogs. What has to happen for your path to success to widen out a little bit? Do we need one specific player who's an X factor to go nuclear and be a big positive win? Like what happens for the European team to win this?
I think you got to get out early. You can't find yourself in a hole. And I think that's what day 1 and the 2018 was like a slap in the face for the US, if I remember correctly. I want to see. Do you remember what that score was after day 1?
I don't know, but I think it was a slap in the face is probably a good way to describe that.
It might have not even been like an overwhelming advantage. It was just expected that the USA was just going to come in there and roll through. And even if you're looking at something that is near tied in points, I think that just brought a little shakeup. So I would think an X factor, the one that keeps standing out along this lines, and we said we love that pairing, I think Poulter can once again play that villain role, the antagonizing role, and maybe get under the skin of, I think if you think about what needs to happen almost on the other side is the guys don't get along. You see those guys fighting, the locker room issues happen once again, and I think that will just be brought out more and more by the European team being so excited to be there together.
So here's what happened in 2018. So the Americans in the morning 4 balls went up 3-1. And it was like, all right, here we go. And then the afternoon, this is the big slap in the face. The Euros won all 4 sessions, and they won them 3-2, 4-2, 5-4, 5-4. And after the first day, you're down 5-3, and you just got waxed in the afternoon. And now you're looking around the locker room like, wow, how have things changed in the last couple of hours? It's amazing.
100%. So I think, starting out quickly with it, and it's 2 4 balls, right? Or I guess 4 balls and then 4 sums on the Friday. So you send out and maybe, and this is where I was thinking in my head, like, how do you get a team that maybe Bryson or Brooks don't play on? Okay. How does that happen? Like when Kyle was trying to pick it, And it's, if you came up and you told Brooks or Bryson right now, hey, you're going to play one match, we'll see you on Sunday. That's all you're going to get for the week. You might see those guys. What's the point? Why would I even show up if you're going to play me one match? And I think you could sit here and straight face tell guys on the European Tour team, hey, you're not going to see the course until Sunday, but we need you to be the best teammate for those first couple of days. And you might roll out that exact same pairs, and that top 4 pairs, those first 8 are strong.
Yes.
So I don't probably let anyone else see the course if you don't need to, kind of early on. So I think that, to me, I mean, if you see, because that was Molinari Fleetwood, trying to see how much they switched it up. I mean, they went back and forth with it in pods, but yeah, I just kind of roll with that really strong side of it and hope they can anchor it.
Yeah, that's and on day 2, which was Saturday, the morning session, the Euros won 3-1. So then they extended them to 8-4. They split in the afternoon. So now you go to Sunday singles 10-6, which is a big deal. I mean, that's a lot to come back from. And then when they lost it was 7.5, 4.5 to the Europeans on Sunday, and it ends up looking like just a bloodbath.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I mean, every single time the Euro team is the underdog, and it's like, right. You tell yourself, how could the talent of the United States get beat? How could it? Every single time. And it seems like I feel more and more momentum as we get closer. Hey, I'd rather be betting on the underdog than trusting what the U.S. is going to roll out. So I think the camaraderie has to stay up and willing to kind of be a full team. And you come out early and you hit them with the big 1-2 punch of I guess 1, 2, 3, 4 punch to me, which is Rory, Rahm, Hovland, and Casey. Those 4, you need those guys picking up 3 points each.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we are a couple of weeks away from, 1, not only learning what the teams are, but 2, then seeing all of this in action. Sky, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yes, of course, man. I got the juices flowing. I can't wait for it to come up here. So I'm excited. And so this is the thing, why I got to thinking about Guido and what's coming. Axis, who I've worked with forever, we're diehard Guido fans. So we've already locked in our trip. We haven't bought the tickets yet, but we're going to be there in Rome for 2023. I told my wife we're making this trip. We're locking it in. We haven't done our honeymoon yet because of everything going on. So we're doing 3 weeks in there, going to explore, and we just love Italy. So Rome and the Ryder Cup is definitely a part of that schedule.
I was going to say, once my wife hears this and hears that there's a golf tournament in Rome and there's a reason to get to Rome, like, we might be joining you there as well.
Yep.
That's cool. Sky Hoke DFS on Twitter. Where else can people get more of you?
Yeah, so every Monday, I'm with the Mayo Media Network doing a preview of the European Tour events with Tom Jacobs. We do that. It's out Monday evenings and kind of goes through kind of our betting boards for the week on the European side and the DraftKings contest, which aren't that big, but it's kind of fun to learn more about these golfers as we see them growing through. So I have that show out every single Monday.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for popping on. Follow Sky on Twitter. Again, it is at SkyHookDFS. This has been 300 Yards to Unknown, and we'll catch you next time.